there was one day I said to my sister, I said, I'm never going to get married because, nobody likes me.
Hi, everyone. My voice always
Don't
cracks.
laugh. Oh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Journey to Zoe. If you are new here, I'm Shania. And today we have a special guest with me. I have here my Auntie Yemiiiiii, Pastor Yemiiiiii.
Yes, sir.
Let's give her a round of applause. Yep. We have her here today. I'm very excited to have you here. If you know Auntie Yemiiiiii, if you don't know her, you're missing out. I'm so sorry. But if you do know her, you know that she's a phenomenal woman. She's a leader. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's a hard worker. She's a pastor. She's so loving and caring.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, a woman. Okay.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to have you on here because I know that you have had such an interesting, experience. I feel like with your life so far, you could have made a movie, to be honest, with everything that has happened.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, having you on here, having my guests on here, I feel like it's a way of giving people hope, especially
Yeah.
young ladies.
Yeah.
That watch this, obviously for young men as well, but honestly, for when I thought of having you, my heart went to young ladies especially. And just for anyone who can be able to relate. Before we start, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you?
Right.
If I was a stranger and I didn't know you at all,
Yeah.
who would you say you were?
I'm Olayemi Borire. I always say that I'm a very simple girl.
Yeah.
And I'm a lover of God. I know God is my biggest cheerleader. So yeah, I love God so much. I look in my life and I'm like, if God wasn't a part of my life, I know that my life would be very bad.
Very different.
Very bad, different. But
Would
yeah.
we still be calling you Pastor?
No. But yeah, so I'm a very simple girl. I'm married to my wonderful husband, is Borire, and then I have two wonderful boys. Two boys that I see a very bright future for. And God being the center of that future.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. I try my best to be who God has called me to be, and I just love life, and I love a very simple but classy life.
Simple
but classy,
elegant.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a very simple person. I'm simple. That's just me.
And you mentioned, what is it that you believe or you feel that God has called you to do?
God has called me to a lot of people. I wouldn't say that God has called me to just one specific. I think before I had my children, I used to think that, oh, God has called me to women and He's called me to young girls. But I think having my own children and having them, the boys, I strongly believe that one thing that I'm so sure that God has called me to do is to be a mother and to be a nurturer to my boys. I say to people that my husband's a very busy man, and I can't be a very busy woman. Yes, I am busy, but I can't be too busy. I can't be as busy as my husband is because my boys, I know that God has called me to them. I don't just have them because, I wanted to have children. I know that what God has reminded me of every time is that these boys have been given to us, to me, to nurture. So number one, I think that
greater.
It is greater than, and that's why any job I get, anything I am doing, I make sure that the boys are well looked after. I make sure that I pour into them every day. So they're my biggest calling in life. And then I know that I'm called to be an encourager to a lot of people. And that's why I think that once I have come to that realization, I've been asking God to help me in the way I say things, in the way I show up every day. Because I think that the way I act, the way I talk, the way I comport myself wherever I am, will go a long way. Even when I don't say anything, will go a long way in adding value to someone
else's life.
So, yeah.
And when you said, your purpose is to nurture and to look after your boys, I don't know if you know, but I think it goes beyond that, honestly, because I think you do it unknowingly. That nurture, that love that you put into your own boys, you also put it into other who are may not be your biological children, but you still show the same nurturing, you still show the same compassion, the same love, the same, like, there's a way Auntie Yemiiiiii will correct you, but it'll be like a warm hug.
Oh my God.
it will be like you're scolding. It's like you want better for the person. And it's actually reminding me, there's a Bible verse I was reading yesterday, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it was in Titus, and it was saying, it was basically saying, like, the same amount of energy that they used to rebuke people should be the same amount of energy they used to encourage people, right? It shouldn't just be one side. It should be on both sides. When it's time to encourage someone, when it's time to love on someone, I feel like we should pour our all, if you can, into that, as much as you would use to maybe correct someone and rebuke someone. And I feel like that's exactly what you do for a lot of us. You might not see it, but I definitely see it. And it's better to see things from an outsider looking in. But let's backtrack. Going back, it's okay. You're welcome. Going back to, let's say, how old were you? Like, let's talk about, how old were you when you first maybe encountered Christ, or when you gave your life to Him?
So I would say that I think I was 10 years old, 10 and a few months, because I remember that I went to high school and it was a boarding school. And I remember it was the first year of high school, myself and my twin sister. We met some other students that were, I don't know what year they were in, but I remember that it was like a fellowship, and we heard, I've been going to church, and go to church and do your normal thing. But I remember 1992, we met some people, they spoke to us about Christ, and I was like, this is it. I want this, Jesus for myself.
10.
Yes, when I was 10.
Wow.
And then in saying that, I know that there were a few times, like Pastor Kolako was saying yesterday,
you give your life,
you take it back. I wasn't taking my life back on purpose, but I know that at some point, I just, I was a good person. Yes, but I drifted. And I remember that when I was in, I think, year 11 in high school, I remember that I came back to Christ, and I could remember it, that we were having, it was an outdoor crusade, and someone, it wasn't even my church, someone invited me, and someone was preaching on that day, and it was saying that if you like to rededicate your life and all of that, and I remember that night I rededicated my life, and there's been no going back since then. And I think this would have been about 5 years after that. And there has been no going back. I even remember that when I was in high school, I think year 11, there was a time where I stopped using jewelry, and I was like, oh my God, I just want to do.
You were one of those.
I was like, I just want to do this.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I just want to do this, for God. I will leave it, and I'll see how far I can go with it. But I wanted to just love God. And I remember then my elder sister was already in uni. And oh God, my big sister is such a lover of God. And I wanted to be like her.
Yeah.
You know, and anytime she comes home from uni, she's always talking about God and you know how she's doing something now for God. And I wanted that.
Yeah.
So she was like someone I'll always look up to and say, I want to, as much as she knows God, I want to know God that way also. So yeah. Yes.
But I want to know for you, were there times where you felt as though, oh, this is really hard? Because I know you said like you wanted to give everything, you
Yes.
wanted to, you know,
Yeah.
but were there times where you felt tired or you felt, you know, exhausted?
I think that in my own journey, I wouldn't really say that there was any time that I literally fell or I literally, you know, left God. What I can say that there have been times that, oh God, they've been my low moments, and they've been times where I've questioned God so much. So growing up, because I was born with bow legs, and I think that, you know, for many people they might not see it as a big challenge, you know, but it was a challenge for me. That I was still telling my sons this morning that there were days when I was a teenager, I will ask God and say, God, let me wake up tomorrow morning and my legs are straight. And you know, my bow legs were not just my bow legs were really, really pronounced. Anyone looking at me from meters away will be able to say that, oh my God, there's something about that girl.
Yeah.
She's got, there's this lady I see online now on Instagram, NHN. She's got bow legs, but her bow legs are not so pronounced.
Yeah.
But mine, oh my God, I will wear skirts that are so long so that nobody. And I remember one day a lady told me here in Australia that, because I went to the store and I said I wanted to buy a really long skirt, and she was like, why do you need to wear skirts? I've got pants. And I said, oh, I don't wear pants, you know. Then I never used to wear pants. And she said, why? I said, can you see that I have bow legs? And she said, or even when if you wear those long skirts, they wouldn't cover your legs. Yes, she said that to me. She didn't say it in a bad way, but she was trying to convince me
to get
pants.
She's like, either way you'll still see them.
She was like, you still see them. That was how pronounced my bow legs were. And it used to make me feel less of myself. You know, I remember I'll say to my sister, like, there was one day I said to my sister, I said, I'm never going to get married because, you know, nobody likes me. There was a time that I traveled to my cousin's place in Ondo State. And, you know, my cousins then, we were in, I think I was in uni or in high school. And, you know, they were talking about their boys, and we were talking about girls and all of that. And my twin sister was there. They were just talking about, she was talking about boys that have asked her out. And I was just like so sad. And I was saying to myself that, I think they asked me, do you have anyone that's asked you out? Or I was like, nobody, because, you know, nobody will ever like me this way.
My goodness.
So, you know, I think those times in my life where it was a time, I think from year 11 to when I graduated and when I went to uni, it was a very difficult time for me. Another thing that made it really difficult was because I did my like HSC, we call it YX. I did it then, and my maths and my English, I didn't have a good score. And because I didn't have a good score, my dad didn't even, you know, I got the results for my exams, and my dad was like, okay, you're going back to year 12.
Oh, so you repeated?
Yes. So I had to do, and everybody knew that I already graduated. And I remember that when I went back to year 12, my twin sister that year, she gained admission to go to uni. So when I started year 12 again, she was going to uni. So
how did that make you feel? Like your twin going on?
Shania, it made me miserable. Because to me, and when we were doing our year 12 exams, I remember that I put in so much effort. I remember that I did my best, and somehow I thought God was going to, you know, like I was so sure that I was going to pass. I was really sure that I'm going to pass this and I'm going to go to uni. But I didn't. So when almost everyone that we graduated together were going to uni, I was there doing year 12 again. And even when I finished the year 12 again and I passed the subjects that I needed to pass to go to uni, I didn't pass. There's this exam in Nigeria, JAM. It's a joint matriculation, it's joint admission matriculation board. You have to get a certain mark, a certain score to be able to study whatever you wanted to study. And I did it 4 times.
Wow.
And I couldn't even.
So you had to repeat year 12 4 times?
No. So I repeated year 12 once.
Yeah.
But every year you sit that exam. But I couldn't go to uni.
Oh, without it?
Without it.
Wow.
So I went to uni and I did a part-time study. So I was going in the evenings.
Yeah.
Something a lot of people that were older would do because they go to work and then
they come later.
So that's what I ended up doing. Wow. And it made me, I remember my mom will always say to me, that's self-pity. You can't sit down here and pity yourself. Just get up and be who you. And I thank God for my mom because she will always tell me, don't pity yourself. You can be who you want to be. And I think that really helped me. But I'm telling you, those years really made me feel less of myself, coupled with the fact that I always thought, oh, nobody will be my friend. I'm just there by myself. My twin sister is gone. My elder sister is gone. I'm always the only one at home. It made me feel, and I struggled. I struggled a lot to believe that, a God that loves me will make
you go
these
through
things
this.
happen to me. It was as if God was not answering my prayers. Okay, God, if you would not make me gain admission to go to uni, just make my legs straight. I remember somebody called me in my church, an older person, and he said that like I'd found favor with God, and whatever it is that was making me sad, that I should just let go of it and know that I'm highly favored of God. And I think that was the time I started accepting who I was and, just understanding God better, So, yeah.
So how did you, because I can't imagine going through all of that, how did you, because you said during this whole time, you still held on to God, right? But obviously you were
shaky.
It was like a push and pull kind of thing because, he is a loving father, he is a merciful father, and it's only normal to be thinking, okay, but why are you doing this for me? And you overcame. How did you overcome that? Was it the shift in your mindset? Because you said, when that person said that, you also realized within yourself that you accepted it, right? And so there is something that wallowing and self-pity does to you, right? If you allow it.
Yes.
So what did that look like?
So in that time, I think there was only so much people could say. There was only so much my mom could say because I know my mom looked at me and she would always want me to just snap out of this and stop pitying myself.
She's your mom.
Yeah. I think that my mom making those statements, I think helped me. But I think that the shift was when because I remember I would always ask questions. I was in a group in my church then, and I always ask questions like, okay, you say God loves everyone. Why is it that I remember this question I'll ask so much, and people in that unit, that why is it that God loved David so much, and on the other hand there was another person, Saul, and why is it that God made Saul? Saul suffered, and then David, it was as if everything David did, even in his mistakes, God was
still
okay because I love him so much, I'll let go of some of the things he did, and when they explained, I remember there was one brother then Brother Derek, when he explains, it will just help me see that no, it's not that, God loves us all differently. He loves all of us the same way. But the way God will relate, the way God was even related to my twin was different from the way God was relating to me. So I think being in a unit like that, I think helped me.
Surrounding yourself with the community.
Surrounding myself. My sisters, my twin sister, my big sister, they would never let me sit in a place where I pity myself so much and think that, oh, God does not love me the way he loves them. So surrounding myself with people, even when my sisters were not there, that unit that I belonged to in church, when those times that I asked those questions, and I had this rubbish diary then that I used to write silly things in. Silly things like God not answering my prayers and all of that. Those people, that community, they will not let me think less of myself and think that God will never answer my prayers. I also had to come to that realization and embrace the fact that God loves me so much. That the fact that he's not letting things that I've asked for happen now does not mean that he doesn't love me. He will always assure me that, Olayemi, you're loved beyond what you can ever imagine. And I think now I look back and I can see, I can tell, and I can boldly say that I'm loved of God. That what that man said, that I'm highly favored amongst women, I can stand today and say that that is my story. I went for a wedding. We're in a bus. We traveled about 2 hours or 3 hours. And in the bus, someone was talking about God as not being such a good God.
Oh.
And just because she had been asking God for things and those things were not happening. Oh, I remember that day in the bus. I remember how I spoke of how good this God is and the assurance that I had or that I have in this God. That if the God of the whole universe decides to say he loves me, he loves me.
Yeah.
And that settles it.
That's it.
He loves me and he will not let anything. If he allows it, he knows why he's allowed it.
Yep.
And that assurance, keeps me going. So I think that's what just shifted
you. When God truly says that he loves us,
yeah,
he really loves us.
He does.
And there's a verse, one of my favorite verses, and it says, what can separate us from the love of God? Right? And I've come to understand that God is never the one that leaves. God is never the one that decides to be like, I'll come back later when you're ready, or you're too much.
No.
We're the ones who tend to leave. We're the ones who always make that decision. We're the ones who feel so much guilt that we maybe God has forgiven us, but we don't forgive ourselves.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Maybe we're the ones who it's just us, but God is a constant.
He is constant.
He doesn't change. He's never gonna give you his love and then take it away.
No.
I feel like humans are the ones, people are always like, even some of the kids that I teach, like, oh, if God is so good, why does he let bad things happen? And I'm like, God doesn't let bad things happen. If this world was the way God wanted it to be, there would be no wickedness, no chaos. But God gave us free will because he loves us.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want it to be like a militant, like
not lording it over you.
Yes, like you have to love me by force. He wants that love to come from you.
It's you.
And I think being like a young woman, I struggled a lot with beauty standards. And I don't know, just believing that God had loved me and made me beautiful. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the timing as well that I was like raised. Like even now, some of the I feel bad for some of the kids that are
It's a
growing up now, because
struggle.
they're looking at social media now.
Yeah,
They're
it's a
looking at all
lot.
these unrealistic
It's a lot.
expectations. You're looking at somebody on
It's a
Instagram. You don't
lot.
know that they've edited that picture
Yeah,
like 50,000
yeah,
times, but you think it's
yeah.
real. All these things.
It's a
And
lot.
just like you said,
It's a lot.
I don't think anything can truly, only by the grace of God.
Mm.
I feel like you as an individual have to come to that realization
Yes.
by yourself,
Yeah.
regardless of what anybody says, because
Mm.
anybody can tell you, like someone can look at you. Even my mom used to tell me something.
Yeah.
She said she can look at me and tell me that I'm beautiful
Yeah.
and I'm all these things, and I'm like, yeah, in my head when she
And
used
you
to
don't
say that, I'll
accept
be
it.
like, you're my
Yeah.
mom. Like, what else are you
What
gonna say?
else would
Are
you
you gonna say
say?
I'm ugly? Like, and she would
What
say
else
all
would
this.
you
She'll be
say?
like, but Shania, like,
Mm.
and
Mm.
one day I had to look at myself and I had
Mm.
to say, there's in Genesis it talks about how we're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And so
Fearfully
if
and
I'm
wonderfully
there and if
made.
I'm calling myself
Mm.
ugly,
Mm.
and if I'm calling myself,
Mm.
I'm not good enough, I'm
Mm.
not worthy enough.
Wordy.
If
Mm.
I'm saying all that about
Mm.
myself, then that means I'm saying that about God.
Yes.
That means
Yes.
I'm saying that God is not beautiful.
Yeah.
That means I'm saying that God did
And you're
not
made
God
in
did
his
not
image.
look at me
Mm.
and say this is
You
good.
just decided
God just
to.
decided to mush me
Yeah.
together, and
Yeah. Mm.
that's not true.
No.
But
No.
that only came, and I'm not gonna lie and say sometimes
Yeah.
I still don't feel.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes I feel like, oh my goodness, like,
Yeah.
but then I think that
Every
make every
imagination.
thought obedience
Okay.
towards Christ.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I've been learning that that's something that
Mm.
I'm in a
Mm.
season of right now.
Mm.
And knowing that you might have those thoughts, but what
Yes.
are you doing with
With
those
them.
thoughts, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yes, some days I may wake up, some days I feel great.
Yeah.
Like, I wake up
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
morning, I haven't eaten anything, so my
Are
stomach is
you?
flat. I feel good. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take on the world. And then other days I'll wake up and I'm just like, oh, I feel so fat. I'm like, oh god, I don't want to go anywhere, and I'll be talking to my mom.
Oh my God.
But I have to, because if you sit in your
Yeah. You
thoughts
can't.
alone, being in your thoughts
You
can be
can't.
one of the most scariest
Yeah.
places to
Yeah.
be, right? Because
Yeah.
like it says, your flesh and your spirit are
Mm.
constantly at war.
There
So
were.
if you give your
Mm.
flesh that
It will
footstool,
take
it
over.
will take
It
it.
will take
So
over.
I've had to learn to,
Mm.
okay, let's, in my mind, okay, this is what's coming up right now. I
Mm.
don't feel as beautiful. I don't
Mm.
feel, maybe some people were in your
Yep.
situation. Maybe you have, something, but it's making your mind obedient,
Yeah.
forcing your mind,
Yeah.
because you have control over it,
Over it. Yeah.
forcing your mind to be like, no,
Yeah.
God is the one that made me.
He made
And
us.
everything he makes
He's
it perfectly.
beautiful.
He makes it
He
beautiful.
makes it
Like,
beautiful.
wonderful, we're fearfully and
Yeah.
wonderfully made. And I
Yeah.
feel like, so
So
for you, when you came to that
yeah.
realization, did that give you more confidence for, like, when you met your husband? Like, did
Mm.
that, the fact that you had already
Yeah.
shifted your mind?
Yeah. Thank God for the shift.
Mm,
But
mm,
in saying that there was a shift, I remember when I knew that, yes, this is the man I'm going to marry. This man loves me. I remember I still had so much doubt.
mm.
Despite the fact that I had the shift,
There's still doubt.
I still had so much. Really, there were doubts that I I didn't used to talk about as much as before, but I still had those doubts. I remember that my husband then was in medical school then in Lagos. I will go there, have fellowship. When they have their fellowship, I will be there. Sometimes I would even, I had a few friends there. Sometimes I will stay the night there. I remember this one incident or one night. I was with a particular sister, and this sister, I met her through my husband. She was like, she's quite close to my husband then. Her name's Shola. So I was in the same room with her that night, and we were going to sleep. And then we were just talking about life, and I said, "Oh my God, that I'm really, really, um, not that I was scared, but I was saying to her that I've had this in my head for a while now that I don't think I'm worthy of this man, you know, that just look at me, you know, my bow legs, look at me, I'm not as spiritual as he is. And I don't think I'm worthy. She said, is he worthy of you? That why will I think that way? That is he worthy of me? And I'm beautiful, I'm this. She just started saying so many things.
Yeah.
You know. And that night I was like, that's true.
Yeah.
Like, why do I think that I don't deserve someone like him? You know? That what's the because I have although he saw me.
Yeah.
He saw me that I have bull legs before he
Exactly.
decided, you know, that this was who he wanted. You know, and it was
It's not like it's not like he hid it. Yeah.
I couldn't even hide it. I couldn't even hide it. So I was like, okay, like if he's decided that this is the person he wants to marry, you know. And I remember that, you know, there were a few people then that would tell my husband before we got married. I would say to him then, oh, they're better people. Why is it that it's this lady you want to get married to? There are better doctors out there. Those times, you know, the thoughts will come again that okay, they said there are better people. I remember one day I told my mom. He came and he spoke with my mom because someone really important in his life was saying that no, he couldn't marry me and all of that. And he came to my mom and he was like, okay, you know, this is what's happening, but he's happy. This is the person he wants to marry. And I remember my mom called me. My mom said, is it a must? Is it a must? Must you marry this man? Like if this is what, you know, people are saying, you know, like, must you marry him? And I said to my mom, you know, that night, I'm like, Mom, no, I know it is him I'm gonna get married to. But if he says he doesn't want to get married to me anymore, then that's it. You know? So there were still doubts in my mind, and there were still days that I'll look at myself and I'll still say, God, just change this about me, or just, you know. But I think I had to talk to myself. Once again, I'm still going back to myself to remind myself that I'm worthy of this. The fact that, you know, I look a certain way does not mean that I do not deserve things. The fact that I look a certain way does not mean that I'm not worthy of the best things in life. Few years after that, you know, I got married, I came to Australia. Do you know that when I came into Australia, do you know that before then, after I met my husband and I knew that, yeah, I was going to get married to this man, um, I would forget that I had bow legs. I'm telling you, Shinayo, I would forget that I had bow legs. The things that will remind me, the times that I will remember and become so self-conscious. I remember when I just came to Australia, there was a day I was walking past in Newcastle, in Curry, and I just noticed that people were looking at me. I was like, oh, why are these people looking at me? Oh my God, I think that day I was walking to the bank. And then I remembered, oh, they were looking at me because of my bow legs. Oh my
goodness.
But there were times that I forgot that I had bow legs. If people were not looking at me, and when I say looking, like staring at me, it did not, it was no longer a problem to me, because I think I had grown to just accept that I am loved.
You are beautiful and you are handsome, and once you understand how much God loves you and how much He like cared for every detail of you, then you know true peace will come and true happiness will come from that. And I'm so thankful that I have, you know, you in my life. And I was saying, you know, let me just kind of wrap up by saying this. When I wanted to start these videos, God reminded me that, you know, when I did Journey to Zoe, I took time to talk about my journey. But then He was like, I haven't placed all these people around you for no reason. You know, I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough to know some amazing people. And these people, they have a story to tell. And they have, you know, amazing like transformation, joy, hope, you know. I mean, you don't know what someone's life you might have just changed now, you
I
know.
pray.
So I just pray that whoever is watching this, wherever you are, just know that you are loved, you are cared for, and God loves you with an unending love. It literally says it in the Bible. I've loved you
It's unending.
with an unending love.
It is.
And yeah, but thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Shay.
coming on my channel.
Thank you for
I
having
really
me.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And guys, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
See you.
Bye.